Good morning. My name is Janet Rader. I'm the worship associate for this morning's service. The prelude for this morning's service, played by our pianist Bruce Ruby, is Cherry Blooms, a Japanese song. Welcome to this Zoom service from the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Church in Stuart, Florida. Thank you to all those helping to provide this service. Karina Poloni, our Zoom master, Bruce Ruby, our pianist, and Reverend Paul Johnson, our worship leader and minister. We are a welcoming congregation to people of all skin colors, sexes, sexualities, gender identities, ages, and backgrounds. You are very welcome at this fellowship. Please visit us after this pandemic threat subsides and our church services go live. Announcements are found in our weekly online Friday newsletter. Members and friends, please be reminded to mail in your pledges and offerings. You can also go to our website, info@tcuuc.org, to donate. Thank you. Our chalice will now be lighted by Reverend Johnson. When I first began thinking about today's service, it was before May 25th. At that time, my opening words focused on flowers, since this is the annual flower communion. When I reviewed those words, they seemed inadequate and inappropriate. As a new UU, I turned to the UU website to see what was being said there. What I found posted on June the 2nd is the following. As we mourn the death of George Floyd and other Black people killed by police, the UUA denounces anti-Black racism and the inherent violence of policing. Police brutality is a symptom of white supremacy and anti-Black racism. And as people of faith and conscience, dedicated to justice and liberation, we must name this truth. I invite you to go to the UU site to read ways our congregations are called to engage in truth-telling, repair, and resistance to challenge the pervasive patterns of anti-Blackness. Bruce will now play through first, and then we will sing hymn 76, verses 1 and 3, for flowers that bloom about our feet.
Yes, I think you're staying on music cam for the affirmation.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We come to that time in our service for sharing of joys and sorrows. And the first thing I want to mention, I don't know if it comes, which category it comes in, but I was very pleased that last Sunday there were at least 4 members, including myself, who took part in the demonstration forth and back to the Roosevelt Bridge, protesting the vicious death of George Floyd at the hands of police. Karen Frank was there, Anna Dickinson, Caitlin Palmieri, and over 1,000 people from the Stewart area bore witness to the value of human life and justice. And I was pleased that we were represented there. And then we congratulate Enid Johnson, who recently celebrated her 97th birthday. I talked with Enid this past week, and she expressed appreciation for all the cards and calls that she got from members of this congregation. So congratulations, Enid, on this remarkable milestone. And then also I talked this past week with Martha Alfie, who has become a long-term resident now of Martin South Nursing Home and Rehabilitation Center. And she expressed appreciation as well, cards and calls that she's gotten from members of this congregation. And in talking to her son Bruce, he says she just loves to get calls, and I'll leave her room number and her direct phone number with Debbie, our administrator. So if you call the church, you can get that and know how to get in contact with her. But for these joys and sorrows, which I've shared, and for those that remain unshared, we lift our hearts as a caring religious community. And now let us join our hearts and minds in a spirit of meditation. For the fullness of life, which blesses us with bounty and beauty and unexpected graces, we give thanks this day. Let us lift to awareness those events which have enriched our lives during this past week, those events and gifts for which we are grateful. For beloved friends, colleagues, and members of our family who bring love into our lives, we give thanks. And we lift to awareness the names and faces of loved ones for whom we have concerns, both near and far away. And as we see their faces, may we discover how our lives may intersect with theirs more lovingly, more creatively. Some of us may have experienced this past week disappointments. We may be in pain as we watch the demonstrations over the callousness in our world. We may be downcast in spirit, anxious, troubled over difficult decisions. We may be regretting deeds done and left undone. We may be angry with ourselves or with others. And so we lift to awareness now our personal yearnings, desires, and needs. May we be open once again to the graciousness of life, renewed in hope, forgiving and forgiven, sustained in health, reconciled to one another, and restored in spirit, that we might realize life as good and rich and glorious. Thinking of these things, let us be together in a period of silence. Amen.
because wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Zoom host for this service, our very first live virtual service. And thank you to all who are participating, either as part of the service or as audience members. Since today is our flower communion, I would like to share with you what I have learned on the subject of florography. Florography is communication using flowers or an arrangement of flowers. While certain flowers have a meaning on which most of us can agree, such as a red rose or a lucky chrysanthemum, during the Victorian age, initiates at florography could encode a whole message into a bouquet. If this subject interests you, look for my email from Thursday evening. You will find some history, botany, and poetry to peruse relating to each of these flowers that I am about to share with you. Before I do share, I invite you to consider if anyone you know deserves one of these flowers. If they do, tell them. Pass them a virtual flower during coffee hour. I rhymed. So these are the shortened meanings of the flowers. And if you are interested, make sure you check out that email. It goes a little more in depth as to mythology and etymology and all of that interesting stuff. So let's start with a sunflower. So sunflowers mean warmth, dedication, adoration, and also they mean harvest or bounty. Here we have daffodils. Now daffodils are one of the first flowers of spring. So they, rather appropriately for the present times, symbolize rebirth and new beginnings. And let's hope that we can experience some birth and new beginnings. So the majestic bird of paradise means freedom because it resembles to some a bird in flight, but it's native to South Africa where it is called the crane flower. And to them, it doesn't resemble a bird in flight. It resembles a bird that has very magnificent head plumage. Like if you were to imagine it that way, you would imagine it has two googly eyes right there. Right? So it also can mean joy, anticipation, and excitement. Okay, so next we have iris. This is a blue iris, and the different colors of the flower add tones to the meaning. So an iris is named for the Greek goddess of the rainbow, who is also the messenger of the Olympian gods in the Greek pantheon. And she was also the goddess of wisdom, trust, hope, and valor. And she has given this flower some of its names. Now, because this is a blue one, it has the connotation of encouragement. If you were to give somebody a blue iris, it would signify your hope and your trust in them. Chrysanthemums are especially meaningful in Chinese and Japanese culture. They have their own festival in the fall where they are celebrated. They are associated with good fortune, longevity, and health, and joy and optimism as well. Different colors have different meanings of these too. So a purple chrysanthemum would mean get well soon, and a white chrysanthemum symbolizes honesty and loyalty and purity. Next up, we have a sweet pea. And if for no other reason, to check out my email from Thursday. This one actually has a really magical poem attached to it by Alfred Noyes. So sweet pea means blissful joy, but it also means farewell. So it means something like farewell, adios, if you put it in a bouquet to somebody. And I saved this one for last. This is one of my favorites. These are asters. And asters are also named for a Greek goddess, the Greek goddess Astraea. Her name means starry night, and asters resemble little multi-pointed stars. The meaning of the aster is justice, innocence, purity, and precision, or love, wisdom, and patience, similar to their namesake. And if I may read you a poem by Robert Frost. I end not far from my going forth by picking the faded blue of the last remaining aster flower to carry again to you. So thanks for permitting me to share that. I hope everybody is enjoying the service. And now for Paul.
Thank you, Karina, for that lovely introduction to flowers. Fascinating story behind our flower communion within our Unitarian Universalist tradition starts in the year 1914. The place was in a village in what is now Slovakia. And at that day, Norbert Čapek, the Baptist minister in the town, happened to look out his front window and saw that the local police commissioner was coming up his walk. And he wondered, what in the world is this all about? The gentleman was a friend, and so he wasn't particularly fearful. But what the police commissioner told him gave him pause. He said that his name was on a blacklist of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, that government officials did not like some of the things that he wrote in his church magazine. And he said, you are going to be arrested and sent to prison, so you must flee as soon as possible. And flee he did. With his wife Marie and his 8 children, they left the country, ultimately ended up in New York City. He took up his career as a Baptist minister there among countrymen. But very soon they found that this Baptist minister wasn't preaching the same gospel as their previous minister. He didn't look at Jesus as being, a vicarious sacrifice for the sins of the world. He viewed Jesus as being a prophet and a teacher. He did not think of him as the second person of the Holy Trinity. And so he was brought up on heresy charges. There were those who wanted to drum him out of the ministry. But he was acquitted of the charge and continued in his Baptist church. But one day, while his wife was singing at a wedding in their church, she had a stroke, and she died right there during that wedding service, leaving him with 8 children to care for. Well, about within a year, he had married again to Maya. She worked at the New York Public Library, where he did a good deal of research in the Slovak department. But so they merged their families. He no longer felt comfortable in the Baptist church, and so he left that position of minister and took up work as being a writer for a newspaper. Now, Maya wanted to find a religious education program for their family, and she found one that was so just to her liking at the local Unitarian church, East Orange, New Jersey. The whole family found a religious home there. Now, the minister of that church happened to be a personal friend of Thomas Masaryk, the president of the newly independent country of Czechoslovakia. And he came upon an idea. He said to Norbert Čapek, he said, I think you ought to go back to Prague and start a Unitarian church in Czechoslovakia. I'm going to put you in touch with Dr. Elliott, president of the American Unitarian Association, and see what can be done. Well, he followed through on that. AUA decided to support Čapek and his wife as they went to Prague to start a new Unitarian church, brand new in Prague. Started out small with just 40 members, but it grew and grew and grew until it became the largest Unitarian church in the world, with its branches totaling up to 5,000 members. Now, early on in the church's history, he felt that he needed to find a ritual that would bring people together from many, many different traditions. He had people who had been Protestants, and those who had been Jews, and those who had been Catholics, and those who didn't have any background whatsoever religiously, and atheists and agnostics. And he racked his brain to think of a ceremony that could express the beauty of their unity to Unitarian principles from these many, many different traditions. And one day in the spring of 1923, as he was hiking in the outdoors, he saw a beautiful array of wildflowers, of various shapes and sizes and colors. And he came upon the idea that this was a metaphor for their congregation. And so, on June 4th, 1923, the last Sunday before they went on their summer hiatus, he introduced the flower communion, asking everyone to bring a flower representing their highest ideals and their individuality within unity in the congregation. And they gathered them into a bouquet. He had a blessing upon the flowers, and at the end of the service, everyone came forward to take a flower other than the one they had brought, realizing that we give and receive in a religious community. Now, Maya came to this country in about 1940, just as the war was heating up over there, to raise funds for some of the refugee work that they were doing. But Norbert and the family stayed on, and when the Germans took over, the Gestapo spies regularly attended his services. And they didn't like what they were hearing. And he was arrested and sent to Dachau concentration camp. It's noted that he served as a minister there and even had the flower communion in Dachau. I just heard yesterday an interesting fact that there were not flowers in Dachau, but he encouraged people to get twigs and stones for their flower communion in Dachau. He was submitted to some very, very vicious medical experiments and died in 1942 as a result of that. But Maya had introduced the flower communion in the early 40s in this country, the first time at a church in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the ceremony has spread throughout the world. Remember, a number of years ago, 1984, I was at an international conference in Tokyo of 50 liberal religious groups from around the world, and we celebrated flower communion at the temple of the Rishikosukai Buddhist faith. So almost all Unitarian Universalist congregations celebrate a flower ceremony or flower communion at about this time of year. And what is the message of flowers to us that we have here this morning? I hope that so many of you have with you this morning. And I think the great diversity of color and shapes bespeak the vast human differences in temperament and sexual orientation and goals and aspirations and religious beliefs and sentiments. And It's amazing to me as I look back on my ministerial career of more than 45 years now, of all of the different orientations that people have come to our faith. I've known, of course, Protestants and Catholics and Jews, but also Hindus and Muslims and Buddhists and Jains who are attracted to our core principles and coming at our religion from these various different traditions. You know, I like the story that Robert Fulghum tells in one of his books. He was a UU minister, he was a very, very successful author. His first book being Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. But he tells a story of, he was establishing a game one time for kids in his congregation, and he divided the kids up to giants, wizards, and dwarfs to start the game. He said, I want all the giants over here, and all the wizards over here, and all the dwarfs over here. But then a young girl tugged on his pant leg, and she said, Reverend Fulghum, where are the mermaids? Well, we don't have mermaids in this game. Well, we sure do. I'm a mermaid. And by gosh, he found a space for mermaids in the game as well. And that's been the tradition of our faith, that people from various traditions and self-assignations have been able, in terms of our general principles, our very important principles, have found a place among us. And then I think the flower communion underlies the fact that we serve each other in so many different ways. Margaret actually once wrote this lovely piece, which I just appreciate. She said, what is a Unitarian Universalist congregation? She said, it's a place where joys are celebrated, where griefs are comforted, where reason and learning are honored, where talents are nurtured, where concerns are shared, where friendships are deepened, where love of beauty is experienced and encouraged, where serving of others inside and outside the congregation is fostered in order to have a more peaceful and just world. She finally adds, and where laughter is encouraged. You know, I'm finishing now 4 years with you in our developmental ministry, and will soon be on my way. But I have such appreciation for the ways that all of us have served each other in the ways that Margaret actually points out. And I really can't enumerate them for fear I would forget somebody or forget an aspect of congregational life, but just take a look at my annual report, which you have gotten or should get soon, about all the ways that I celebrate, the ways that we have served each other through sharing of our talents and our commitments within this congregation. You know, as I look out on the empty chairs this morning, I see Karina there, and of course Janet is here, and Boots is here. But I just imagined, as I've looked out, all the faces of the people where you usually sit, and a real warm glow comes to me. And then finally, I think the message of the flowers is something ineffable, something really can't express. Karina brought out so much about the ministry of flowers to us. David Rankin, a ministerial colleague, once said, what is a flower? It is a memorial for those who have died. It is a token of love and affection. It is a symbol of birth and renewal. It is an emblem of joy and beauty. It is a sign of hope and confidence. But then there's something that words really perhaps can't convey. There's a purity, a mystery, a heavenly quality that engenders only awe and silence. So the flowers are an indication of the relationship we have to all of being. It's one of mystery, one of beauty, and one of celebration of profound religious community. So these are some of the messages that we have brought to us by flowers today. Before the flower communion each year, Norbert Chapik would have these words of consecration, which I share with you. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask your blessing on these, your messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts to be one in desire and affection and devotion. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as a precious gift. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship. May we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed in this world. Aren't those wonderful words? I thought of those words as I visited that congregation in Prague in 1996. It still exists. It's still there. Now, usually, of course, when we've done this every other year, people bring a flower, we put it together in a central bouquet, and then people come forward and take a flower other than the one they brought. And of course, we can't do that in terms of our Zoom service today. I'm going to ask that those of you that have a flower to hold it up. I'm holding up a flower that I got just in front of our apartment this morning as I came out to come to service. And as you hold it up and look at each other's flowers, think of the fellowship and the common commitment we share as Bruce favors us with music. I appreciate those who have shared a flower with us this morning, and may these flowers ever represent the love and commitment that we share. I want you to know, as my days are coming to an end with you, that I'll always remember you, and there'll be a special place in my heart for all of you, a place of love and respect and best wishes. Now let's join together in our closing hymn, number 308, The Blessing of the Earth and Sky.
With
Thank you, Reverend Johnson, for that wonderful message about the flower communion and all the history that it entails. Reverend Johnson will now extinguish the flame of our Unitarian Universalist chalice. May we carry the flame with us, and may our core light shine brightly. I invite you to join us in our Zoom coffee hour, which will begin immediately after the service. Our postlude is Chrysanthemum by Scott Joplin.